go.
Okay.
I'm talking to a Sophie Stuchfield today, which is great. It's all about driving. Now, Sophie and I met how many years ago, Sophie, do you think? 10,
Oh,
12, 13?
I think it could be even
Even
15
more.
years,
Oh,
maybe. Yeah,
blimey.
yeah.
Anyway, we met a long time ago and I discovered that Sophie is a driving instructor. So I thought today it would be really good to talk to her about, everything to do with driving. And I think it's really worth following her because she also does social media as it's the online driving instructor, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, the online driving instructor.
And for me personally, I found that incredibly useful. You do a wonderful and really funny, Sophie is really funny. She does a great Tuesday quiz, which is a brilliant refresher. And my husband and I sit and do it usually over breakfast to see which one of us can get it right. And there are things, because we're much older and not having taken our test like 2 years ago, that you kind of go, oh, I didn't know that. Or it's a brilliant refresh and we have a good laugh. And I'll often go to Sophie, yay, 100%. Oh, no, that was a bit of a tricky one. Anyway, Sophie, welcome to GillHB
Hello.
and Friends. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm
No, no,
I'm honoured to be one of your guests.
I think it's going to be brilliant for people to find out. I mean, first of all, what on earth made you decide to become a driving instructor?
Yeah, I know, right? I would have never ever have thought, young little Soph would never have said that I would be a driving instructor. I used my background is sports and fitness. So in the early 2000s, I was a personal trainer and I was commuting into London at like 4, 5 a.m. first train of the day.
Oh, God.
And I was seeing personal training clients. I'd then sit around for hours until
Mm,
maybe 1 or 2 at lunchtime. And it would always be every evening, every weekend.
hmm.
And I just got fed up of working such unsociable hours. It would get to the weekend and all my friends would be like, you coming out this weekend? Should we go out? And I'd think, no, I'm working. And because I hadn't been working the amount of hours during the week that I needed, I had to work in the weekends.
Yeah.
So I thought I need another job that's maybe appointment based and I can cram in a few extra hours during the week so then I don't have to work as many hours at the weekend, perhaps.
Yeah.
And I randomly chose driving instruction. I just thought, why not? It's one-to-one teaching based. I know how to drive, and yeah, let's have a little go at this, shall we? And then when I signed up at the time, obviously, about 26 years ago now, it was very much a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
And so therefore that got my my back up a little bit and I thought, hang on a minute, I can do this. And yeah, I started doing it. The idea was it would work alongside the personal training and
Hmm.
fitness. As it was at the time, it just the phone for the driving lessons rang way more than it did for the fitness lessons.
So what do you have to
So
do to become a driving instructor? Because you can't just go, oh, well, I've got a license, now I can become a
correct,
driving
yeah.
instructor.
You,
Yeah, I
you
know because
literally
legally, I mean, if you've got a full license, you can sit with a learner driver next to you.
yeah.
But
So
that
long
doesn't
as
mean
you've
to say I
had
can
your
be an
driving
instructor.
license
Yeah,
for 5 years or more, you
right.
can start the process.
And the process is?
You have to have is it DBS check, I think they call it.
Yes.
And then there are 3 exams that you have to take. The first one is just like the learners do. It's a theory test. And you go to
Hmm.
exactly the same place that all other learner drivers do, but you have like an extended theory test. So you
Yeah.
have many more questions and the pass rate is a lot higher. Then once you've passed that, you then go on to basically an advanced driving test to
Right.
see your ability to drive is good enough. And then once you've done that, you go to what we call part 3, which is the horrible part. And that is you get assessed on teaching people how to drive.
Okay.
However, there's a criteria and boxes that you need to tick. So when you do the part 3 test, the examiner sits in the driver's seat and pretends to be a learner driver, and you have to instruct them. And you're only
From
allowed
scratch, like they pretend like
it
first
can depend.
lesson.
So you have different topics. Like for example, you get a topic on crossroads or roundabouts or manoeuvres, or it might be
Okay.
it might be a first ever lesson. So it's a controls lesson maybe. And so when you turn up for the test, the examiner will say, today you need to teach me roundabouts, or you need to teach me dual carriageways, or you need
Right.
to teach me as if it was my first ever lesson. So they give you a topic and then you
Right.
have to go ahead and teach that. And it's really difficult. It's, as all learner driver tests are as well, it's really nerve-wracking. And one of the issues is you can only take it 3 times. And
Oh.
if you fail on the 3rd attempt, it's game over.
Oh,
You then
wow.
have to have what they say is a 2-year clearing period, and then you have to start the whole process again.
Good grief.
The issue is by the time you've got to part 3 and you've paid all your trainers and everything to train you how to do it, you've already spent thousands of pounds. And
I was
if you
going to ask,
then,
is it expensive?
yeah, and then if you fail on that 3rd attempt, and then you've got to sit around for 2 years and then start the whole process again, it's a massive reason why there is a national shortage of driving instructors. Because
Okay.
it's so hard.
Because it's so hard.
Yeah.
So obviously you got through.
Just about. I failed my part 3 twice.
Oh.
So the 3rd and final attempt was like, oh my days, this is it. I've got to do this. So yeah, when learner drivers are nervous for their test, there is an element where I'm like, you can do this as many times as you want.
Yeah.
I had my 3rd and final part, and you're not really going to wait 2 years and then start the whole process again. You need to work in that time. You're going to go off and find different jobs or do something else.
And then people go by the wayside and think, well, I'm in a decent
Exactly.
job, I'm not coming back to it, etc.
Yeah.
And then in the car, because the car has dual controls, am I right?
It does, yeah. And this is actually, again, something that I never knew until I came into this industry. You have a brake pedal. And if you're driving manual, you will also have a clutch pedal. We do not have an accelerator pedal, so we cannot make any learner go faster. And it's actually super simple to get them done. You take it to a particular registered mechanic who's got the certificate to fit them, or they can even come to your house, and they literally just link up a rod between the driver's pedals and on the passenger side.
And if you're using your car and you're not driving, so normal social, like I would use my car,
yeah,
are those pedals still there? Because the reason I'm asking is I will drive differently to Clive. So there's occasions when I find that my foot is going on the brake or on the imaginary brake. I automatically go to do it, think brake and put the clutch in. And I'm trying to think what happened if I was sitting in your car and
you can get ones that are taken out. I personally have never had that. I currently have an automatic car, so I just have a brake pedal in the passenger footwell. But I got a slightly funny story about that, in that one of the first times when I just qualified as a driving instructor and I had my car and my dual controls, and I was driving along the motorway with my best mate, and she did check the mirror, make sure no one was behind her, but very occasionally she really lightly put her foot onto the brake pedal and then took it off again. And as I'm driving along, for me as the driver, I can feel this kind of like resistance a little bit, but then it disappears again. And we're driving along and she does it just so gently a couple of times. And then after a while she says, "You're right, Bezzy, like, why'd you keep looking like that?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, I'm not sure if there's something wrong with this car, maybe." She said, "Yeah, you keep looking a bit funny." I'm like, I don't know, I feel like there's some resistance on the car, maybe. And then she did it again, and I was like, "There, do you feel it?" And she's like, "No, I don't feel it. No." She said, "You got your roof box on the top. You got that Sophie's driving school roof box on the top." I said, "Yeah, I have." She went, "Do you think it's maybe the wind resistance on that?" I was like, "Oh, do you think so? Do you think that would make a difference?" Like, and then in the end, she starts laughing and she's like, "No, it's me." And I'm like, ah. So ever since then, I do have to say to anybody that gets in my car, do not press the brake pedal. Keep your foot away from it.
But it's I mean, I know you're saying it's an automatic car, but for me, it's an automatic reflex. I've been driving for years and years and years. What I'd have to do is I'd have to push the seat so far back that I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
reach the pedal.
Yeah, my nan actually, as God rest her soul, she's never driven a car, or she had never driven a car in her life, and yet she was petrified of pressing the brake pedal. So she would always like move right back from it as well. But no, I always say to people, unless you get scared, please don't press it. And so far, whilst I've been driving, no one has felt the need to press it, so I think I've been all right.
So do you just teach automatic then, although?
In my own car, yes, because it is just an automatic car. But I
Right.
did qualify as a manual driving instructor, and I did manual for many years, until I realised that, to be honest, I couldn't even be bothered driving manual anymore. So I personally much prefer driving automatic, and the need for automatic nowadays is massive. So yeah, I got rid of a manual car years ago, and I only do automatic driving lessons. But I've still been out a couple of times as an instructor in other people's cars and taught them how to drive manual cars. But yeah, just an automatic car for myself these days.
You must have some very, very funny stories. I mean, personally, taking my own test, and as I say, this was many, many years ago before people had to wear seatbelts, although as the driver, you were always instructed, you know, on your test, put your seatbelt on.
Yeah.
And my test was in July, and it was a really hot day. Window was down. The tester had his arm out the window, so sort of elbow out the window. And I actually had to do an emergency stop without him telling me because a car pulled out of its drive. It reversed straight out. So I hit, I hit the brake, and obviously the clutch at the time. He shot forward, bashed his head on the windscreen, bashed his arm as I did the emergency stop. And I thought, oh God, that's me failed.
Yeah.
And actually he said, no, that's great. We won't need to do an emergency stop. And
You've just demoed a great one.
You've just demoed an emergency stop. Then he made me reverse around a corner we don't normally reverse around, because you know the routes. You tend to get to know, don't you? Like when I was learning, my instructor knew around Yeovil, from Yeovil, which routes to have. But the corner I wanted to reverse around, or he wanted me to reverse around, somebody was already there, a learner driver. So he took me up a street, which was an avenue that had no curb.
Right, okay.
So it was really difficult. Of course, I'm really nervous. So being an avenue, it has trees, Sophie.
Yeah.
Guess who hit a tree?
They're quite close to the edge of the curb at times,
They're
aren't
very
they?
close. And of course, I was busy watching the road and not watching the tree. And I thought, I've really failed now.
Yeah.
And he said, no, that's my fault. You know, wrong corner. We'll go and do another one.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
I passed. I passed first time. But, you know, and you just actually, it made me relax because I thought, well, I failed anyway, so now I'll just drive.
Yeah. That's a big thing. There's so many people that get that, where it can work both ways, where they think they failed and then they think, oh, well, you know, I might as well just see what would have happened anyway. Or it can work the other way, in that they think they failed. Their mind then goes, they lose their focus, they're angry, they're annoyed with themselves. And then they do actually fail their test, because then they make a serious fault. So I always say to my drivers, no matter what you think has gone wrong, just keep your focus and drive the best ever, because you never know. It might not be something that has caused you to fail your test. It could just be a little driver error, which they'd mark as what we call a driver fault or a minor fault. But it does also say how much the test has changed these days, because we don't reverse around corners anymore, thankfully. And, you know, things like that, they are nowhere near as lenient with marking as what they used to be. I mean, even when I took my test, I remember I kind of cut across a double-decker bus full of school children in a gap that I should never have taken, really. And just because at the end of the test, he said, do you want to talk me through that situation? I was like, oh, I so shouldn't have gone. I said, I wasn't ready with my biting point. It was a bit of an incline. It was going to take me longer to move off, and I should have just waited for the bus. And then he turns around and says, yeah, good answer. Well done. You've passed your test. You would not get that these days. You know, you drive as you drive, and there's no excuses. If it's not perfect, it's a fail. So it's definitely a lot stricter and harder these days to pass your driving test than it was.
When I did it.
Yeah. Well, when we both
a long time ago, Sophie. And to be honest, the roads have got busier, Cars have
Yes, they
got
have.
bigger, if you know what I mean, because I was
Yeah,
driving in
yeah,
the days of the original little minis, and when we
yeah,
used to get five of us from college in a little mini.
yeah.
That was always interesting. And it's definitely changed.
It
You know,
has massively changed. Yeah,
it huge. And in
yeah.
terms of automatic as well, with electric cars coming in, is
Hmm.
it different? So could you teach me in your car, and then I
Hmm.
go and drive an electric car, or do I need to have different
Yeah, absolutely.
tuition?
So the only thing that has always stayed the same is that if you pass your test in an automatic car, you can only drive
Drive an
automatics.
automatic.
You
Yeah,
can't drive any manual gears.
yeah.
But as far as what fuel ultimately your car uses, that's down to you, isn't it? Really. So whether you're petrol, your diesel, your electric, hybrids, all the rest of it, we've got. I think the only thing really that I would say has changed, perhaps, in the past 30, 40 odd years, would be a lot of people will probably remember their hill starts and would
Oh
have always been
yes.
taught to use the handbrakes and things like that. That has changed. You don't necessarily have to apply a handbrake, parking
Oh
brake at any point, because some cars don't even have one these days. It's all electric. It does it itself.
yeah.
So something like a hill start, you don't necessarily have to apply a handbrake. Or
Oh
quite
wow.
often, I mean, even when I was teaching manual, there would be people that would say you have to apply the handbrake
Mm,
every time you stop.
mm,
None of that really actually is true. You just have to be able to control your car. So if you are using a manual, you have to make sure that your clutch control is good enough that you don't roll back.
yeah.
And if using the handbrake means that will help you not roll back, then use it. But you certainly don't have to use
It's finding
handbrakes at
that
any
right
point on the
point.
test.
That's right. I
Yeah.
used to again. It's funny how I can remember my test, but it was so long ago. But it's when I was learning, it was on a hill, and
Yeah.
there was a particular hill in Yeovil, and I'd think, and then you see cars up front, and you think, keep going, please keep going, please
Yeah.
keep going.
Please
So
don't stop.
please don't stop, please don't stop,
Yeah.
please don't stop. Yeah. It was one of those because of the hill start that you then
Yeah.
had to do, and I
Yeah.
can clearly remember thinking, please don't stop. I mean, my
Yeah.
first lesson, the thing I can remember was a roundabout. That just freaked. You think, don't you? It's that when you're sitting in the passenger seat, oh, driving's so easy. I can
It
do
looks so
this.
easy, doesn't it?
It
Yeah.
looks so easy, and people can
Yeah.
chat to you and all the rest of it. And
Yeah.
then you get in the driver's seat, and
Yeah.
20 miles an hour feels like 60 miles an hour when
Yes.
you're first learning, doesn't
Yes,
it?
it's a massive mistake that a lot of parents can make, in that they think, oh yeah, I'll take my
Mm-hmm.
son, my daughter out for a driving lesson.
Mm-hmm.
You forget how much you've got to break down the skill of
Mm.
driving. So back when I was learning how to be a driving instructor, I always remember we was in this classroom. We wasn't sat in a car. We was in a classroom, and the guy said, right, can someone tell me how you get a car from stationary, engine off, to driving along a road?
Mm.
And there was about 20 of us in this classroom. Not one of us could actually explain how you get a car moving. And it was because we just didn't break the skill down enough.
Mm.
So as regular drivers, we were like, well, just put it in first gear and away you go. And he was like, nope, can't move. What's wrong? And you think, oh yeah, turn the engine on. Yeah, turn the engine on first. Nope, can't move. What's wrong? Right. So you got the engine on. Well, first gear. Put it in first gear. Nope, can't move. And then you realise,
Clutch.
oh, we didn't talk about the clutch pedal. And then like, okay, bring your clutch up. Nope, I've stalled it. I can't move. And you're like, oh. And the amount that you have to break down
Mm.
your instruction to someone that has never driven a car is insane, really, once you are a driver. And it's, a lot of parents, or partners or whatever, people will say, right, let's get in the car and take you out driving. You can't do that with someone that has never ever driven before. So a question I often get is, people are like, aren't you scared to be on the road with
Mm.
learners? No, because you don't just go on the road with a learner. You take them to a very quiet side residential road or a car park, and you go through moving off and stopping first of all, and you make sure that they can do that before
Mm.
you go anywhere else. So just like you wouldn't expect a baby to run just after it's taken its first couple of
Mm-hmm.
steps, you can't expect to learn a driver to do that either. So being a trained instructor is all about breaking that skill down to the very, very basics, and then how you can then train someone up from there.
Absolutely, because you're right. It's if people don't tell you,
How do you know?
it's
Yeah.
but
I mean, my
I'm all
dad
about
said to me the first
communication.
time I sat in the car, my dad said to me, right, Soph, put your foot down on the clutch, put it in first gear. And I was like, what? Put my foot down on what? Put your foot down on the clutch. I was like, and I
Which
think I
one?
pressed the gas pedal and it probably revved, and then he shouted at me, and I'm like, what? And he's like, put it on the clutch pedal. And just to shout the word clutch, well, I said to him, I said, you can keep shouting clutch as loud as you want. I've got no idea what you're talking about. So it wasn't until he said the pedal on the left, and I was like, right, okay, thank you. I'll put my foot, like, and that's the other thing, you can't just shout the same instruction louder and louder and louder. You have to think, oh, they don't actually know what that word means.
Yeah, it's breaking, as you say, and it's also if they don't understand it one way, it's being able to teach it another way, find another way to
Yeah,
explain it. And
yeah,
it's that,
exactly that.
as a learner driver, to say there's so much. It's I often use it as an analogy when I'm working with clients, is to take them from, look, this is the analogy. Do you remember when you think you can drive and you leap in the
Mhm.
driving seat and go, oh God, this is a lot harder than I thought? Then you
Yeah,
start to practice. So you're thinking about it the whole time. You're thinking, okay, I've got to put the clutch in, I've got to change gear, I've got to listen to the engine. So you're talking, aren't you, constantly?
yeah,
And then you get to
yeah,
the point that you can tell a little bit more confident driver because they can do it without having to think so hard. It becomes a
yeah,
little bit automatic, but they're still driving, if you know what I mean. They're still having to
yeah,
think about it. And then it becomes a little bit more automatic, and the driving instructor will start to talk to you. And I think the scariest thing I remember was passing my test and then going
yeah,
out on my own.
yeah.
That was just like,
Changes everything.
it
Yeah,
changes everything. And I always, when Jackson passed, my son passed, I thought, okay, the worry is going to be until he has an accident.
yeah,
Then, because I think you learn to drive, you pass your test, and then you
yeah,
really learn to
yeah.
drive because
Exactly
people are
that.
aware, with the
Yeah.
L plates and all the rest of it. And okay, we have P on the back, but some
Hmm.
people, they're not those people. They've been driving years, etc. So you tend to ignore that, and then you really learn to drive. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. It was the classic at the roundabout. And
Yeah.
he rang me up and said, "Mum, I've hit the car in front." And I thought, good, now I can relax, which is why we didn't buy an expensive car or a new car or anything like that for him. We had bought a
Yeah.
little second-hand Peugeot that he learnt on, and
Uh-huh.
so that when he then had his first accident,
Yeah.
it wasn't huge, it was a tiny little bump, but it was that classic, wasn't it? The car in front at a roundabout goes to move.
Yeah.
So you do a quick look right, we all do it, quick look right
Hmm.
and go to move as well, and the car in front has stopped.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Not looking
crunch.
ahead. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're not looking
Definitely.
ahead because you're looking right.
I was the
So
same. My mum, luckily, when I was learning to drive, she would sit in the car with me and allow me to drive myself to college, which was in rush hour. It could be up to an hour's drive.
wow.
And so I'd been doing my drive to college for like a good year. I then
Mm,
passed my driving test. I knew the way, but the very first day I got in the car and drove myself to college on my own, I was
mm,
questioning if I was in the correct lane. I was questioning myself on which way I should go.
mm.
I'd had a mixed tape that I'd designed all ready to go and have it blasting out. I had to switch that off. I couldn't concentrate with the music. It felt so strange being in the car on my own. I'd never ever. That was when I realised I've never been in a car on my own. You're always
Yes.
either the passenger,
Oh,
or
you're right.
and someone's always driving. And whether you're in a taxi or whether you're with a parent or whatever, you're never in a car driving on your own until the day you pass your driving test.
Wow. I'd never actually thought of that, Sophie. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah.
All those years. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
yeah,
such a strange feeling. I always
yeah,
say to my learners once they've passed, I'm like, because quite often they pass their test, but it's the confidence. They're like, oh no,
correct.
maybe can you still come and have a lesson with me? When I get my car or in my own car. And I always say to them, just go out on your own and just drive around the block or just drive
Mm.
somewhere local that because it's getting that first drive on your own out the way as well. Because
And then
it's
it's the
so
first,
strange being in the car on your own.
and then the first drive with friends who all leap in the car and
Yeah.
are all busy chatting
Mm-hmm.
and they're
Yep.
talking to you and
Yep.
you're like, don't talk to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
driving.
Yeah.
And it becomes so automatic, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
it's that you drive, you change. When you're learning, you have to think about, oh my God, there's traffic lights coming up. I'm going to have to change gear. I'm going to have to do this. You do that automatically.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you've been driving for years, good old days, you say the mixed tape, and then it was CDs. You could push that in, and
Yeah.
it's
And you
great.
can do it, sort of whilst you're driving,
Exactly,
whereas
whilst you're
a lot of
driving.
people will say to me like, oh, because we now have in the test, the show me questions. So
Okay.
whilst they're driving, the examiner will say something like, can you just show me how you turn on your headlights? Can you show me how you would
Ah,
demist your windows? And again, to any driver, it's the most simplest thing ever, right? And especially if it's your own car that you've driven for however many years. How'd you turn your lights on? Well, you just do that. It's easy. And one of the things on my social media, like, I mean, just recently, a couple of
Yeah.
days ago, I posted a video to say, how do you change your headlights from dipped beam to main beam?
I
Right?
commented on that one. Do you remember?
Yeah, and there are so many people also that comment, and some quite nasty comments, and that they're like, well, that's obvious, and oh, you're teaching beep 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 beep, and
Yeah.
and they're so negative towards that, and you just think, hang on a minute, how would you know if you've never ever been in a car before? And also, when you're a learner driver, for me to say, can you show me how to turn on the headlights? It's like, oh my God.
And you
where's
look
that
down
button?
rather
How do
than,
I do
yeah.
it? Like, yeah, and it's something that needs to be practiced. You can't just assume that somebody knows how to do that if
Well, it's like
they've
if there's a sudden storm, isn't there? Okay,
yeah,
you have intermittent headlights, but windscreen wipers,
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
turning that on
yeah,
fully, and the temptation is to look down. It's
yeah.
funny you should say, and Clive, if he listens to this, will laugh, saying, "Oh, you should know where everything is in the car." We've had our car 7 years, and Clive's
Yeah.
still going. Which one's the rear wing one?
Yeah,
Which one do I put for heating?
yeah,
He does know
yeah.
the one for his heated seat and his heated steering wheel, and this
The
is the man that said,
priorities.
why are we buying a car with a heated seat and a heated steering wheel? We don't need it. And who's the one who uses it most? Clive. But you're right. And again, the cars are so complicated now.
Yeah, but as an experienced driver, there is an element where when you're driving, let's say, for example, you've rented a car, or you're
Yeah.
driving, your partner's
Yeah.
car or whatever. I mean, my partner, she's got a Qashqai. It's all singing, all dancing technology. I don't know. The buttons are just too complicated for me. I just want an on-off switch, and there just
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be one. So I would always say to her, "Can you just put the blowers on for me?" Like, because I don't want to take my eyes off the road that much. But again, as an experienced driver, if I was driving along and I needed to, I've got a bit about myself that I can keep my eyes on the road and still look at having a go at the controls and not panic about it, even
Yeah.
if I press the wrong one the first time. Whereas a learner driver, they will panic about literally taking their hand off a wheel to press a button. And it's something that has to be practiced and has to be taught. But there are so many people on, especially social media, that will see a video of, oh, how do you open and close a window when you're driving? Again, sounds absolutely ridiculous, but the amount of times you have to practice with someone who's learning to drive to say, do you want to open your window? And they'll open the back passenger window.
Oh, that's me, even now. The wrong button. Damn, I've opened the rear window instead of my window, and then I know that I've got to move my hand forward,
Yeah,
So,
or
I'm
just
guilty.
that thing of taking their hand off the wheel to actually, I mean, and at the end of the day, it's just a button, isn't it? It's not even the wind down things that we used to have. Like,
Yes.
but yeah, so as I said, when I post on social media, it might be to a driver the most obvious thing ever, but to someone who's learning and has never ever done it before, you have to teach these things. You have to break the skills down.
Absolutely. And it was a reminder that you gave about how do you change the angle on your headlights. People don't think about that, and particularly with these incredibly bright lights now. I mean, we were driving back the other night, Clive and I were together, driving back in the dark, and there was a whole stream. There must have been half a dozen cars with those really, really bright headlights.
Yeah.
So we literally couldn't see.
It's so dangerous.
Slow right down. If it's one car, it's a few seconds. But there was like 4 or 5 of them. And also, I think we're not in an SUV, so a lot of them are the 4-wheel drive.
It's even worse.
SUVs,
When you're in a smaller car, it's worse. Yeah.
It really hits you right in the eyes. And it's like, I cannot see.
Yeah. The amount of driving instructors now that are not instructing at night because you come away with headaches. You're literally being blinded. It's ruining your eyesight. And there's been many occasions where I've been driving at night and or in a lesson or with other people, and a really bright light is coming towards us, and they say, oh, they've got their full beams on. They haven't. They just haven't dipped their headlights into the floor. And it's really, I believe it's 2 things. It's number one, it's the LED lights. They're too bright and unnecessary. So it's a car manufacturer issue, but it's also a driver issue in that where we have now automatic headlights, people just stick it on automatic mode and then forget about it and never do anything with it. But as I said, in majority of cars, there will be some way that you can dip or raise the beam on your headlights, and people are driving around with a raised beam, which is all getting in our eyes, as opposed to dipping it into the floor. But they just don't know that they've got that feature in their car.
But that brought up the question from Clive, do we have that? Yes, Clive, it's on the right-hand side down by
Yeah,
the
little
door.
dial.
There's a little dial which shows us where it is,
Yeah,
which is why I find your videos so helpful, Sophie, because unlike other people, you kind of go, oh, yeah, actually, where is that on my car? And how
yeah,
many of us, as you're saying, we leap in a rental car or we leap in our
yeah,
partner's car
yeah,
and then go,
yeah.
how
And
does this
each car
work?
can be so
So
different. I mean,
different.
it's not always the same on every single car. And it's one of the comments that I get on people. I mean, I've recently done one about lights on a Peugeot, and somebody's commented going, well, that's incorrect because on that particular model of Peugeot, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's not, mate. I've just been in the car and done it. Like, but then if you get in a different model of Peugeot,
Mm,
it might be different and he might be correct for that particular model. So
yeah.
it will change from car to car, but again, I think the trouble is because it says automatic mode, people just get in a car and start driving it and assume it'll all be done
And I think that
automatically.
the lights will dip themselves at the right
Yeah,
angle for the weight of the car and how much you've got in the back. And people
yeah,
don't think of that. When you've
yeah,
got a trailer or a huge weight in the back of the car, that the car is tipped up.
yep,
But you're also right. I mean, Jackson went abroad for 6 months' work, but kept his car insured, put it on our drive, and said, "Mum, would you mind driving it?" Well, it's a little Ford Fiesta ST2, is it, whatever top.
yeah.
And I was like, do I mind driving this? Not at all. But again, I had to get him to show me because it's keyless.
Yeah, uh-huh,
So when you get in the car and I'm going, where do I put the key in? Jackson just, Mum, no, you don't. As long as the
yeah,
key, and then you press that and you're away.
yeah,
And also the interesting thing is the car you drive has a real impact on other drivers around you. And what I
yeah,
mean by that is I got in his little Ford Fiesta Sport
yeah,
and I would pull up at traffic lights or something like that, and you would see somebody next to you. Boy
uh-huh,
Racer would suddenly go, or somebody would look, I'm saying Boy Racer, would look and think, oh, I can beat this one.
yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I have a competitive edge, Sophie. But it was interesting how different drivers drove with me driving that car as
Yep,
opposed to me driving our Astra.
yep,
And it was marked as
yep,
to they see a particular car and they think it's a particular type of driver.
mm-hmm,
And they
yep,
don't half drive differently around you. They either drive right up your rear, or they're
yep,
trying to zip by you, or they're trying to egg you on at, traffic lights.
mm-hmm,
And I just thought, wow, this is really interesting all these years
mm-hmm.
on.
The amount of times as I've maybe been driving from lesson to lesson or
Mm,
just driving myself and my roof box is still on, so I'm still marked as a learner car,
mm,
and people cut me up at traffic lights, people try to jump in gaps, and I'm a bit like, whoa, dude, what are you cutting me up there for? And then you can see them look in the mirror and they see it's just me driving, it's not,
mm,
and then they're literally like, oh, sorry. And I
yeah,
know full well that they've seen the L sign from a distance and thought, I'll get in front of that learner.
yeah,
And then they cut you up so dangerously, and you're like, what was that for? That was a bit unnecessary.
yeah.
Um, or the other thing where I thought you was going when you were saying with your, driving your son's car, and I've experienced this recently because we've just changed from a Suzuki Swift to a Suzuki S-Cross.
Mm,
My little Suzuki Swift had great acceleration on it.
yes.
So I arrive at like a
Go to
roundabout and I
take
can
off.
take those quick little gaps because
Yeah,
it's a nippy little thing. I
yeah,
put the foot down, it goes. In the S-Cross now I've got, it's a much bigger car and the acceleration is rubbish. And the first few times I drove the car, I was getting beeped at roundabouts because maybe I'd taken a gap that in the Swift would have been fine. I put my foot
yeah,
down, it just hasn't got that acceleration. So I've ended up slowing down traffic and I'm having to put my hand up saying, yeah, my bad, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have gone in that gap.
yeah,
But and that's the difference. Every single car is not exactly the same. And
exactly.
the
And
amount
I
of
mean,
times
you're
that
you're
people
quite
will just
right.
jump from car to car to car and think everything's okay. But so I mean, I'm lucky. There was no. I mean, I say I pulled out in a gap that I shouldn't have done. It was never going to cause an accident as such. But sometimes seconds matter, and it could have been something that caused an
Yeah,
accident. I'm going to hold
absolutely.
my hands up and say, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have taken that gap, but I was expecting my car to go faster, and it didn't.
Which is why I enjoyed driving that car, his little car, for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
When
I
he
bet
said,
that's
Mum,
got
would
a
you
bit of
mind? I was like,
acceleration on it.
I used to have a sports car years ago, and I thought, oh, I can't wait, the acceleration. I mean, there have been times when we've been driving back from his flat, and I've been in our car, and he's been in his. I'll leave well before him. He catches me up on the motorway, and I can see him coming. We call it the Blue Bullet, his little car. And I can see the Blue Bullet, and I think, oh, God, here comes Jackson. He's going to go straight past me. Or we'll get to traffic lights together. and
Yeah.
particularly on the old roundabout coming off the M25. And he'd draw up next to me and he'd give me a little smile. I thought, the little is going to put his foot down in his car. And of course, as much as I try to, so I hate to admit, yes, we're trying to beat each other, I just know there's no way I'm going to get up that slip road onto the A3 before him.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
gone. And I think
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about, isn't it? When you're going up as well, slip roads onto motorways, etc. Some
Yeah.
people can get through because they've got the acceleration and
Mm-hmm.
be well up front, and other
Yeah.
people you just can't. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how does sat nav play into? Do you have to do stuff on a test with sat nav? Because
You do, yeah. It's part of the test that's called the independent driving,
right,
and it will be one of two forms. You might either be asked to follow road signs, so the examiner might say, right, from here on, I'd like you to follow road signs to the town centre, for example. Or they bring a TomTom sat nav to the car and it's got a pre-planned route set up on it, and it activates, and then the driver has to follow the sat nav. But yeah, sat nav driving is definitely something now that as instructors, majority of us are all teaching, because what everybody does, they switch
exactly.
on the sat nav. And again, it's something that this is a distraction that takes your eyes off the road you're following. And also, sat navs aren't always correct.
Correct. They take you
Um,
where you don't want to go, or they try and take you down a no-through road that's suddenly changed. It used
yeah,
to be that way, and now suddenly it's no entry, and you're like,
yeah,
hang on a minute. So you're trying to look. I mean, I even experienced driver like me with a sat nav on, you're kind of going, is it this road? Is it this road? Hang on, where's it saying 100
yeah,
feet? What's
yeah.
100 feet? You know, oh, it's not that
Exactly.
little road, it's
Yeah.
this
The
road.
amount of times I've
You
taken the wrong
know,
road because I'm confused by what the sat nav says.
yes, or you're in the wrong lane when there's 3 or 4
Yeah.
lanes in a city, and you're like, well, which lane am I meant to be in?
I
You
also
know,
think that the highways have massively taken advantage of sat navs
yeah,
over the years in
signs
their kind
disappear.
of, yeah, their excuse to not maintain signs
I
anymore. I mean,
agree.
there are many junctions here around Watford and that I've come across where I mean, there's a particularly big junction in Watford. It's known as the Dome Roundabout. It doesn't have any signage from any direction about what lane you need to be in for where you need to go. And the amount of times that you drive around that junction and drivers are having to change lanes at the, sort of the last
Last
moment,
minute.
or, people are drifting into
Hmm.
different lanes, because if you know the local area, you're fine. You know
Hmm.
exactly where the lanes go, you know what lane you want. But if you're not from the local area, it's such a poorly marked and signposted junction, and you wouldn't have a clue really what lane you need to be and when you need to change the lane. And I do think a lot of the time these highways agencies are relying on the fact that because people have got sat navs,
They
most
use
people
it.
are being told possibly even what lane to be in.
Yeah.
But the state of the road signs these days on the roads is, in my opinion,
I
horrendous.
would agree. I'm glad you say that, because so many of them are either covered with
Yeah,
foliage, trees, you can't see it, or they've gone green, or there's chunks of
yeah,
it that have fallen out of the big signs.
yeah,
And you're looking, you think, where am
yeah.
I going? And
When they're never
even turning
replaced.
off, when you're coming, as you say, round a roundabout, and you're looking for the sign that says, I don't know, Aylesbury or Watford,
Yeah,
and the sign's not there, and you think, is it
yeah,
that junction?
yeah,
Am I going down there? And so,
yeah,
yeah, it's this last minute panic
yeah,
as
yeah,
you're going around thinking, where on earth am I meant to be
yeah.
going?
I live very close to the Warner Brothers studio tour for Harry
Oh,
Potter.
oh,
There,
right.
there are tens of thousands of people that are visiting that place every single day. And
Wow.
there's quite a large roundabout. If people are driving quite often to and from London to get to it, there's a big roundabout there. And again, there is no road signage for it. And on a weekly occasion, there will be an accident. There will be people there that have had an accident because I mean, a lot of these people, again, not from the area, and quite often they're
Mm,
even foreign drivers,
mm,
foreign plates and things. And it's so frustrating that something as simple as decent signage could prevent so many accidents, and
yeah.
yet nothing seems to be done about it.
I mean, sometimes we think, how on earth did we manage with old maps
Hmm.
finding somebody's house, somebody's new address, when we
Yeah,
didn't have sat navs? We
yeah,
somehow managed it. The good old A
yeah,
to Z, if you were in London, was in the thing. You kept pulling up, you see people pull over and have another look. Oh, no, it's not here, it's the next one. And the
yeah,
other thing I think today as well, when we're talking about roads and signage, is actually potholes.
yeah,
Because now not only are you looking, I'm talking personally, and I think everybody else does the same. Not only are you looking at the car in front and watching the general road as you used to, but you're also looking for these massive potholes. And the amount of times you're driving along and the person coming the other direction, I mean, I've done it myself, see a massive pothole and you automatically swerve to go around it without thinking what's coming in the other direction.
You're
or
damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Correct.
Because, you know, going through the pothole, you know, obviously the damage to your own car, but how do you know how is it going to affect your steering? And quite often you cannot see these things from a distance. So, you know, you could be approaching at a speed of, I mean, even on the dual carriageways, you might be driving at 40, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. You know, that's going to have a massive impact on, you know, what can happen to your car. And, you know, we're filming this at the moment in the cold weather, right? Like we currently, I mean, every day around here recently, the gritters have been out. Yeah, lovely. It prevents the ice, but the state that it leaves the roads in, the grit that they use reacts with the paint that they use as the road markings. So the road markings are disappearing. And then, you know, the potholes that are now appearing are massive and huge. And it's, you know, it's a really dangerous thing.
I mean, I'm down in Devon, as you know, so I mean, what would be seen as an A road down here is more like a lane these days with the widths of cars, etc. And at night, particularly, and if it's wet, the side of the road, so the tarmac on the side has disintegrated.
Yeah.
So you tend to have to move further out. When it's raining, I'm really wary. Is there a big pothole there that I can't see because it's full of water? Or is that the side of the road? Or is there a ditch? And the amount of cars that have gone off the road because they've moved over, they've been caught, you know, and it disintegrates down the side of a road out in rural Britain. And of course the car goes in that direction as well. And you just think, this is so dangerous. And then of course you get, dare I say, white van man driving up your rear, headlights full on, trying to physically push you to go faster.
Because they're wondering why you're going so slow.
Why you're going so slow around these lanes. You know,
and it's a big roads. Drivers just have lost all consideration for other people as well at times. You know, like, for example, you've got a extremely legitimate reason there why you might be driving slower on that road. Whereas the van driver is probably looking ahead of you thinking the road's clear, why are you going so slow? Correct. You know, or, you know, when we are at a junction that we've never been to before, we have to go slower to be able to process how many lanes are there and where am I going and what am I doing? The amount of people then that, you know, are flashing or hooting saying, come on, you can go. They're just because they know what lane they're in. Yeah, well done, good for you. But the driver in front, you can never assume the situation that the driver in front is in and what might be going through their mind.
I mean, do you often get people who come to you, Sophie? Because I know from clients that I talk to, you know, they learnt to drive in London or they learnt to drive 20 years ago. They've been in London, never needed a car, and now they've got a licence and they've kind of a little bit nervous about driving. So do you do lessons as well for people who...
Massive amount of inquiries for driving anxiety. Wow. And it's exactly what you've just said. One of the main reasons for me, I live in Watford. It's, you know, just outside London. A lot of people will grow up in London and never have a need for a car. They then, you know, jobs or family, they buy a house outside in Watford or even further out of town, and suddenly they need to drive. The older we get, the more anxious we become about everything. So that is one of the reasons. But I mean, the most instructors' phones after the pandemic went crazy for anxiety lessons as well.
Wow.
You know, people spent many time not driving at all. And then when they did go back to work and the world opened up, a lot of people, their lives had changed. They were no longer going into the office on the train. They were going to have to drive into the office. You know, so the need for refresher on motorways or dual carriageways and parking as well. You know, now suddenly they need to park at the office and they don't know how to park.
I still hate parallel parking.
Oh, everyone's always got a bit of a nemesis, I think, haven't they? But
I'll go to a car park rather than park unless it's a big enough gap I can easily get into.
But one of the biggest ones as well, aside from those two things, I'd say is somebody's partner quite often. If they're a passenger in a car and their partner is always driving and they're quite an aggressive driver, shouting at other people, you know, oh, come on, you could have gone in that gap, and, you know, why are you driving so slow? it absolutely petrifies that person. And when we're in anxiety lessons with them and they're nervous about lane changing, quite often they're constantly looking in their rear mirror. Oh, I probably annoyed the person behind me. Oh, have I annoyed them? Oh, and they're so worried about what other people are thinking about their drive. And you have to take a moment to say to them, nobody cares. Like, why do you keep bothering about all the other cars so much? And it transpires that they've got a partner or a parent or whatever that's very aggressive in the car, and it's petrified them that if they make a mistake, other people are going to be shouting at them as well. So it's really important that if you, particularly as a parent, not even when you've got a 17-year-old in the car, when your kids are young, you've really got to be careful with the language that you're using in the car, because they're going to learn that. And, when it comes to them learning to drive, they're petrified that people are going to be shouting at them if they make a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all of that. And in terms of motorways these days, can you just pass your test and go onto a motorway? Or do you have to have a lesson? Because I never see learner drivers on motorways, for example.
It's such a good question. So in answer to your question, yes, you can just pass the test and be on a motorway. But the thing that's changed is, if you are with a qualified driving instructor that has a dual controlled car, you are allowed on the motorways now during your driving lessons.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's so many people that don't know about this. I think, I don't know the exact dates, but the law on that changed around about, I think it was either just before the pandemic or just after. But either way, it just got completely lost in the media because the media was so focused on, other stuff. And so it just didn't get the advertising that it would normally have on the TV and in the media when something like this changes in the rules of driving. But yeah, driving instructors, if you're in a dual control car, you are allowed now to take people on the motorways.
Well, that's something I've learned, because when I see a driving instructor car, I just think, well, they're not a learner. That's the driving instructor, and I just treat it, I just treat it like, oh, that's an experienced driver.
So it may well be a learner driver on the motorway.
And do you get people who want those? Because is that part you have to do before your test, or
you don't have to? No. So the motorway driving is still not part of the practical driving test.
It should be.
Unfortunately, although the rules have now changed, I still know a lot of driving instructors that won't take anybody on a motorway. Which, to me personally, I think that's a bit irresponsible, because I think it's your duty to teach people how to drive. It's what they're paying you for. But I also think it's a very big decision, in that you can't just take anybody on the motorway. It has to be a driver that is ready, just like it should be on a dual carriageway or a bigger roundabout. We spoke earlier, you've got to do it in bits and break it down. So you've got to make sure you're taking them on a motorway when they are capable and good enough to do that. But one of the things when they introduce these rules around, you can let your learners go on a motorway, but you must have a dual controlled car. Well, as we discussed earlier, your dual controls are a brake pedal and possibly a clutch pedal. If you're going on a motorway with someone, we need a gas pedal. We need an accelerator pedal, because quite often, if that first time they come down a slip lane to join the motorway for the first ever time, and they start looking in the mirrors to make that lane change and join, their foot has come off the power and it wants to go on the brake pedal. And no matter how much you say to that person, press the power, accelerate, if they don't accelerate, there is nothing we can do as a driving instructor.
God.
And therefore they you have to go through it with people. And I'm lucky in Watford, we have so many dual carriageways and slip lanes and things, and you can build up their practice and their confidence on it. But if a learner driver decides they ain't going to press the gas pedal, there's nothing you can do about it. And quite often when it's high speed driving, you need the gas, you need to get them out of danger and out of the way. Pressing the brake pedal can often be one of the worst things you can do.
I mean, that is, as you're coming up the slip road, 2 or 3 lorries. I'm near the M5 here. And if you've got 2 or 3 lorries on your right, and there's a big enough gap, as an experienced driver, I know, right, accelerate, I can get into that gap, rather than the automatic. I think if you were a learner or somebody who just passed, is, well, let the lorries go by, because I'm scared of these huge juggernaut lorries going by. So they slow right up, and you see it. You absolutely see it. And then this person's kind of more or less coming to a stop on a slip road, rather than keeping going.
It
And I
makes me
must admit,
anxious just thinking about
I'm
those
sort of
things, you know?
saying, I'm sort of saying to them, keep going, keep
Yeah,
going, keep
yeah,
going. Don't stop and wait for three lorries to go by you. You've
yeah,
got to
yeah,
indicate and get going.
yeah,
And I know so many people who will not drive on motorways. They'd
yeah.
rather take a 2 hour detour
Hmm.
than drive on a motorway. So
They've never been taught,
no,
and
that's right. They're scared.
it's a shame, really, because it's I wouldn't say it's such a simple thing, but it's something that you can do, and that as driving instructors, it's providing a motorway is within reach. I mean, I know
Yes.
that's why it's not on the practical test. There are certain
Because
parts
some
of the
parts of the
country
country,
where
no
you just can't
motorways. You
get
could
to the
be in
motorway.
Wales,
Yeah,
for example, and no motorway, or
exactly.
further
Yeah,
down in Cornwall, because the M5 finishes just past us. There's no
yeah,
motorway.
yeah. But I
Wow.
mean, there may well be drivers that are listening to this, and one thing as well, you got to say to people, you're not alone. There is many,
Correct.
many thousands and thousands and thousands, possibly even millions of people in this country who have a driving license, but there are many things that they will not do because of anxieties around it.
Yeah.
Motorway driving being a massive one.
Well, do you
Yeah.
know somebody who could help with that then, Sophie? As
Oh,
I've
yeah. Do you know what? I did know a therapist actually. I can't quite remember her name. I think it might have been Jill, possibly.
and it's amazing how many people you do get over that fear and anxiety about
Yeah,
driving,
yeah, yeah.
and talk them through that.
Yeah. I
What
mean,
do you?
there's also been many a time where I say, do you know what? Actually, you don't need me. You need someone like Jill, because a lot of the time it can all be
It's
mental.
mindset.
They
Yeah.
they can drive absolutely fine, and but ultimately, I'm not a qualified CBT therapist. So I'm like, I'm actually not the person you need to see. Your driving is fine. You
Yeah.
need to just talk
Go
this
to
through with
somebody like me
somebody.
who does NLP, or a
Yeah,
CBT person, or somebody
yeah,
like that can just talk you through and give you the techniques that
yeah,
can come into
exactly
play
that.
rather than causing you to panic.
Hmm.
As of today, when we're recording this, there is now in the news, I was reading, it started yesterday and I think a little bit this morning, about they're looking at new rules to come in with regards to drink driving, lowering that limit.
Hmm.
Over 70s having a 3 year eye test, which I absolutely, I absolutely agree with. It's
Yep.
quite scary when I go to my optician and we're doing that. How far down the letters can you read? And he'll say, "You're actually fine, Jill. You're legal to drive without your glasses." And I would be like, "I would not think to drive without my glasses." And he'll say, "Oh, believe me, the amount of people that come in that can't see that and are driving
Yep.
with far worse eyesight
Yeah.
than you are." And he
Yep.
said, "We can only advise them to get glasses, etc." So I think
Hmm.
that's a good one that they're saying, over 70s, but actually maybe it should be people, not just the elderly, who
Hmm.
need to have their eyes tested on a regular basis, because there are a lot of people, the optician said, it's not just the elderly, there's a lot of younger people who shouldn't be driving without glasses.
And it's very interesting, actually, that I completely wholeheartedly agree with you. The first thing we think of is eyesight. I'm actually this evening on a Zoom training course, and you
Ah,
know the title of the course?
I can see
Dementia
clearly
when
now.
driving.
Sorry, the
Dementia when driving.
oh wow.
Because it's not just your eyesight that
No, it's
deteriorates when you
not.
get older.
No.
It's I mean, you could be diagnosed with
Mm-hmm.
dementia, with
Mm-hmm.
Parkinson's,
And
arthritis,
yeah,
all these manner of
and still
things and
driving.
conditions. Yeah, you are supposed to inform your insurance company
Mm-hmm.
that your health situation has changed. But how many people actually are out there driving with a particular health
Mm-hmm.
condition, and they haven't informed their insurance company, and they haven't had any kind of testing whatsoever
Mm.
about their ability to drive? And it's going to become, in the next 20 years, it's going to become a massive thing, because the population at the moment who are in their
Mm.
50s, their 60s, their 70s, 80s, they now have been a generation that have driven for most of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
A while back, the kind of the generation of war, they didn't necessarily always drive their lives. So when they got to 70, 80, 90, they hadn't been driving anyway. It wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
Whereas the generations now that are reaching those ages, they have been driving all their lives. And we are now much more aware of things like dementia. I mean, I've got a friend, her husband just recently has been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and
Mm.
they've had conversations around him stopping driving. But if he stops driving, he now can't get to his bowls club, which is a massive part of his life at the moment, and helps with, you know, what he's doing,
what he's going through.
keeping him going. Yeah. But what do? You know, when you turn around to him and say, well, I'm sorry, you can't drive anymore because of your Parkinson's, then what is he going to, he's now, I mean, he's not the sort of person that would just call for a taxi or get in a taxi, you know, and whilst some people might, it's massive decisions that are going to have to be made, because
I agree.
You know, it's not just eyesight, it's general health, it's reactions, it's even just general mobility. You know, can you actually turn your head around and check your blind spot?
Yeah.
There are some people that, you know, they physically can't do that. Good
point. I mean, dementia, I think, is one that's difficult because often people have dementia, don't realize they've got it.
Yes. Yeah.
Or they hide it from their family for a long time. Unfortunately, I've got a couple of friends in that situation. And one was driving with his daughter, and she suddenly said to her mum, you can't let Dad drive. He just pulled out on the roundabout. He wasn't sure where he was going. He didn't look. He was swearing at the other drivers, but actually not their fault, his. And then kind of got to one well-known road and didn't know, oh, am I turning left or am I turning right here?
Yeah.
And then another friend, her husband, very good friends of ours, a couple of years ago, and she was just like, he's got to go to the doctor, but he wouldn't go because the one thing he was petrified of was losing his driving license. So he actually wouldn't go to get tested for dementia. It was his daughters one Christmas who all came home and said, Dad, you have to go. And then they've had to very gently kind of go, you can't drive, or I'll drive, or rather than saying, you know, your car, we'll just take this car.
It's going to have such a massive knock-on effect because, you know, you mentioned about the eye type. It shouldn't just be an eyesight check. There needs to be something that comes in that we are generally checking people's fitness and ability to drive a car. And then if we tell them, well, actually, you shouldn't be driving, what support then is put in place for that person? Because, you know, as family members, it's all very well saying, oh, no, Dad, you shouldn't drive anymore, or Mum, you shouldn't be driving anymore. Well, are you then going to take them to their appointments and, you know, whenever they want to pop to the shops or to their activities that they might go to? Like, you know, it opens up a whole kind of...
I mean, that's we're in a village and we will be moving because that's part of us thinking as we get older, and my sister has glaucoma. So she's now every 3 years... Yeah, and it was very close this year. DVLA wanted extra tests for eyes. And she said, I'm really aware that in 3 years' time, I might be told I can't drive in my sort of early 70s.
Yeah.
And it's that's made me think, we're in a village. Great. Well, one or other of us can drive, or we both can drive. If suddenly our driving licenses were taken away, we'd be completely scuppered.
Yeah.
You know, the odd bus that goes into Exmouth or whatever, but for everything else...
This is it, isn't it? I mean, bus services have been completely cut all across the country.
Yeah.
I mean, in some places, yes, we do have Uber, but, you know, taxis, etc. But there's sometimes always a debate about the standard of drive there. And
exactly.
And, you know, ultimately, it's, you know, have you got somebody that's currently in their 80s? Would they have a phone app that can deal with Uber? You know, would they know how to do that? I mean, my mum
I don't have an Uber app, and I've got no idea. I've never had an Uber app because I drive everywhere.
Yeah.
So why would I? We live in a village. I drive everywhere.
Yeah.
So I've never had the need for an Uber. If I go into London, I take the train, and I come back out, pick up my car, and drive home past Stonehenge again. So, I mean, this is a whole other conversation, really, Sophie, and I really appreciate your time because I think it's highlighted so many things. But I would encourage people to do your quiz. We love that, to follow you on social media. And we just love the driving instructor you have with her long blonde hair and glasses. I mean, I had no idea who she might be.
You got to put some humour into it because ultimately everyone thinks about the highway code and testing, and it can come across as boring. And even, you know, people that are currently taking their driving tests, I know that to open the highway code and read it and learn it is extremely boring. There are many other things that people want to be doing. So
can you still
buy
a highway code
little
book?
Bit of
Can you still buy a highway code book?
Probably, yeah, but it is all online. It's all
I like online, a book.
So. I'll be honest, that is a good question, actually. I'll be completely honest. I don't know. I mean, I know in general they're all trying to get away from paper as much as possible, aren't they? But No,
Anyway,
I
sorry, you were
try and put a
saying.
little bit of humour into it,
You
even in
certainly do.
the options that I give you, you know, to
Yes.
select what is the right.
Lloyd, your dog, often appears as an option.
Yeah, yeah. One of
And
these
I'd
days,
never
Harry
guess who
Styles
you
will drive
support
past
football
me.
wise either, Sophie, in some of your options.
But it is important because, you know yourself. You probably never took a theory test. It came in 1996, I
No, I
believe.
didn't
So
take a theory test. I was
yeah,
just asked
anybody.
questions on my test. What does this sign mean? Or I was shown a picture. What does
Yeah,
this mean? No, I didn't take a. I'd like to say, oh, 96. Of course I took a theory test. No, I didn't.
no, yeah,
And I think that's where you're so useful. And the idea of you going online, I think, is brilliant. And people, and I know you've been running around Watford. So for anybody listening, you're in the Watford area, and
yes,
they can download you doing the actual test routes, which I think is
yes,
really helpful. You're
yeah.
also at the moment downloading or filming some poor person who's agreed to have his lessons. And I think that, to me, would you thank him? Because I think that's crucial
Yeah,
when
yeah,
it's all the stuff that you're saying that we as experienced drivers just assume people
yeah.
know.
And with Maya, he's brilliant because he is such a confident guy. He's absolutely amazing. He's enthusiastic, and
Yes,
if
he
you've just
is.
met him one on one, he's brilliant. But behind the wheel, he's petrified. He's
Yeah,
absolutely petrified. And this has been a thing. Learning to drive for him has been well over a decade of,
yeah,
all different instructors and different
yeah.
lessons and things. And ultimately, he fronts it. You speak to him, you would never see the anxiety that he has behind a wheel, which I'm so glad that he has allowed me to film these lessons, because I think it's showing a lot of
Huge.
people out there that it isn't just the quiet, shy people that are scared to
Correct.
drive. It can be the most confident person
Yeah.
ever, and yet behind the steering wheel he doesn't find it easy, and he's so petrified of it as well.
No, well, do
um
thank him. I think they're brilliant to see somebody, doing that, and
yeah.
it's even more scary probably being filmed. So come on then, how do people find you? What are you on? You're on. I don't do TikTok, but I know you're on TikTok. Am I
Yes,
right?
I'm on
So tell me
TikTok.
where you are that everybody can find
Yes,
you and go
so
follow.
I'm on TikTok as Examiner Anne, which is my friend who is trying to help the driving test not seem so intimidating to everybody else. And I'm available on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook as the online driving instructor.
And if anybody is in the Watford area, how do they find you? And they want to have
They
lessons
can
with
probably
you.
Google, yeah, driving lessons with Sophie on Google, and I should crop up. However, I will say there is quite a long waiting list.
Oh wow.
But any decent driving instructor, no matter where you are in the country, if you're looking for driving lessons, get on a waiting list, because, as we said right at the start, there isn't enough driving instructors to go around. So if you're contacting someone for driving lessons and they have immediate availability in the next couple of weeks, to be honest, alarm bells should be
Should be
ringing.
ringing. Right,
Yeah,
okay.
there isn't enough decent driving instructors, and I completely appreciate that nobody wants to be on a waiting list for 5 to 6 months or whatever. But we have a massive backlog with the actual practical driving tests, which means that as instructors, we're not churning out as many drivers as we used to. People are having lessons for a lot longer just because they can't get a practical test.
Wow.
So most driving instructors will have some form of waiting list. Be patient; it will be worth it in the long run, as opposed to just going with someone who
So
there'll be a reason
if you've got
why
a
they're not fully
17-year
booked.
old who's going to get their license, actually it's worth
Inquire at 16.
inquiries. Yes, I was going to
Yeah,
say inquire
definitely.
much
Inquire
earlier,
at their
because
16th
then you're at the
birthday.
top of the waiting list. And if you're not ready, you can say, well,
Yeah,
no, I'll go down one, I'll go down one. So
exactly
if you're
that.
like me, I was desperate to learn to drive. And smack on my 17th birthday, I had my first
Yeah,
lesson. And
yeah,
Jackson, my son, was exactly the same. He just couldn't wait. He was counting down
yeah.
from about 14.
And
Only
if you're a
3 more
parent and you've
years.
promised that, we'll
Yeah,
get you driving lessons for your birthday. The
yeah.
amount of inquiries we get off parents because their son or daughter is going to be
Like
17
next week,
next
and
week
yeah,
or in a couple of weeks or even next month. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do. And they're mortified because for, the
yeah.
past decade, they've been promising their son or daughter driving lessons on their birthday. That sometimes then the worst thing they can do is just get desperate, go with anybody to have a lesson on that day.
Yeah,
It goes catastrophically wrong, and then you've installed a fear and a horrible
Yeah.
feeling about driving lessons with
I
someone.
mean, as a career, would you advise people to be driving instructors? So somebody thinking about it?
If you would be a teacher, then yes, there is an awful lot of taxi drivers that are coming into the industry. They
Okay.
know the roads of the local area, and they might know how to drive a car themselves, but you've got to be a good teacher. So
Okay.
if you would be, for example, if you could
Patient
imagine
and
yourself as a school teacher or as a one-to-one tutor in anything, then yeah,
yeah,
absolutely be a driving instructor. If you're going to become a driving instructor just because you like driving, it might not
no.
be the thing for you.
Yeah. Great. I mean, as you said, you came from being a PT and it seemed to make sense. And actually, for
Yeah,
somebody, it can combine, can't it? So you can transition slowly
yeah,
across.
yeah.
Sophie, thank you so much. I mean, the time's just gone whizzing by. There's still 20 million questions I'm sure I could ask, as I knew I
Well, people
would.
can always ask me at my social media sites. Feel
Absolutely.
free to message
Go
me
to your
there.
social media site and ask
Yeah.
Sophie any questions there. So thanks a bunch. And
Thanks for
I'm
having me.
glad. No, I think I'm going to have to have you back again to continue. And we'll chat some more. So good
Brilliant.
luck. And anybody with you, I'm sure you have a high pass rate. So
Thank you very much.
okay.
Bye.
Bye.